This week we're shooting for the stars. We're playing the biggest games in town, literally. And shh, there's a comedian trying to sleep. Welcome to Click. Hope you're doing okay. This week we're going to be talking a lot about taking photos. So Lara, you know how we've all been looking for new hobbies to help fill the time during lockdown, yeah?
I've been very busy colouring in with my 8-year-old.
Oh, lovely. So she's got her colouring in book and you've got an adult colouring in book and you sit next to each other, do you?
No, I only do the children's ones because I think the grown-up ones are too fiddly. Anyway, what have you been up to?
Well, let me tell you. You know those amazing photos of the stars in the night sky that you can get by taking a long exposure photo? Well, I've kind of been getting into that. And it turns out that astronomy as a whole has become a much bigger deal in the last year.
I suppose it's something you can do in your back garden when you're on your own and can't go out.
Exactly. So you might think that you'd need a big DSLR and a telescope to get those kind of shots, but no. Turns out you might already have everything you need in your pocket. So I wanted to find out more about this, so I asked TV host, space journalist and author Sarah Cruddas to try a bit of astrophotography on her smartphones.
It was looking up at the night sky as a child which inspired my lifelong love of space. But whereas in the past, capturing images of the night sky required expensive kit, now all you need is the latest smartphone, a bit of luck with the weather, and enough time to set up before it gets dark. The latest generation of smartphones have a few low-light tricks up their sleeves to make getting those Insta-worthy night sky photographs a lot easier.
I'm testing out 4 of the latest smartphones. We've got the Huawei Mate 40 Pro, the Samsung S21, this Google Pixel 5, my iPhone 12 Pro Max, and as for this, don't worry about it just yet.
Because we'll be taking long exposure photographs, the most important extra you'll need is a tripod to hold your phone steady. And the other really important thing is to go find somewhere that doesn't have too much light pollution. You can always have a look online for dark sky recommendations near you. Then all you need to do is wrap up warm and wait for night to fall. In fact, you might not have to wait until it's fully dark before you get your first shot. If it's up at dusk, it's actually easier to shoot the moon against a blue sky rather than a black one. That way your phone won't just turn it into a white blob while trying to compensate for the incredibly dark sky.
Often when you think of astronomy, you think of expensive kit, but to be honest with you, if your phone isn't enough, if you want to get slightly closer to these astronomical objects, you need a pair of these, not a telescope. I'm such a fan of binoculars. They're lightweight, you can carry them around, you can take them wherever you want to be, and it involves less setting up. And literally, it's a case of holding your smartphone up to binoculars to get that perfect shot. There we go, got it.
It is a bit tricky, but if you want to get really close-up pictures of the moon, it might be worth listening to a proper pro.
A problem with trying to attach your camera or get your camera in the right place to look down the eyepiece of a telescope is holding the camera nice and steady over the eyepiece. So there are now devices. In fact, I've got one here. There we are. It's like a little clamp. This bit clamps over the eyepiece of the telescope and your phone fits in here, which is brilliant because you can keep it really rock steady on that eyepiece and then concentrate on the picture.
It is, as you can probably tell, insanely dark. Of course, you're going to need a torch, but so that you don't dazzle yourself or ruin your night sky vision, here's a top tip for you: use a red light.
In fact, it's so dark that we've chosen to record this entire film using a Sony a7S Mark III, which has very impressive low light credentials. It's a full moon, but apart from that, we've only used an artificial light for a handful of shots. We'll tell you which ones on screen. Just look at how much our normal TV camera struggles in comparison. Okay, time to see what these phones can do. Here's the plough on my iPhone 12 Pro Max. It's not bad for starters. And here's another tip. If you're worried that pressing the shutter button will wobble the phone, you can get a very cheap Bluetooth remote clicker like this one, or you can even use the volume control on your headphones as a remote shutter button. The iPhone and Samsung don't have specific astrophotography modes, so I'm going to go into full professional mode on the S21 and set a long exposure going.
And the result is, oh wow. Wow, do you know what? I even need to do slightly less than exposure. It looks, to be honest with you, it looks like a nuclear bomb's gone off. It's so bright.
If you play around with the settings, you can get some really lovely shots, but the next two phones remove the trial and error with full astrophotography modes.
Hold still for 2 minutes and 48 seconds.
The Google Pixel 5 decides for itself how long it needs to run for, and for this shot, I'm also using one of Pete's other photography tips.
If you take pictures of stars with no context around them, they are just dots in your photo. There's nothing better than actually putting in a bit of artistic composition and adding in foreground objects, because it gives everything beautiful context.
This is incredible. It's a really bright, really powerful image. I would say of the night sky, but it almost looks like daytime, and I feel like I'm a professional photographer, even though I'm just using a setting on a smartphone.
One thing to bear in mind is when the moon is full, the brightness will make photographing stars rather difficult. We actually got some better shots a few nights later, before the moon was up. And now to the Huawei Mate Pro 40, which has something called light painting mode. This simulates a very long exposure shot by taking one photo every few seconds and stacking them together. The results are stunning.
And it just makes you realise that we're on this object that is moving, that is hurtling through space, you know, because you see how far the stars have moved. I think that's the best astrophotography picture I've ever taken with a phone. If I do say myself, it's quite incredible, really.
I'm really impressed with the phones, but now I'm going to try something that is comparatively out of this world. The Stellina telescope uses the same technique of stacking lots of images, but on a very different scale. It's been designed in consultation with astronauts, and former NASA astronaut Terry Virts is a telescope's brand ambassador.
The Stellina is kind of like being in space, because you can see the planets and pick them out in space, but they're just small dots. And the Stellina optics are sort of the same. It doesn't have a big zoom lens that really zooms into planets. But what Stellina does let you do is see those really deep sky objects. And in space, it was kind of the same thing. You can't zoom in with your eyes on the planets, but you can see these giant clouds of hydrogen in the Milky Way, or you can see nebula with your eyes.
Once powered up, the Stellina orientates itself by looking around for familiar stars and constellations, and the accompanying app will give you a list of deep sky objects to choose from.
So we've got to choose from the M13 Galaxy, M51, M82, Sombrero Galaxy, double cluster. Let's do M13, the Hercules cluster.
It will then track the chosen object across the sky, building up an image which it sends direct to your smartphone.
Do you know, I've done astronomy since I was 5 years old. I remember I had a little children's pair of binoculars, but this is the most high-tech thing I've ever seen. I've done it. So this is my photograph. It's taken it for 10 minutes of the Hercules cluster. You can't even see this object in the night sky. And this image has brought up not only the cluster, but more stars than I can see with my own eyes. It's really incredible to think how much technology has evolved since Galileo looked up with his telescope all those centuries ago. And now we have these science fiction-like smart devices which you can capture images of the night sky.
In order to get the best pictures, you do need some perseverance and patience, but the results really have been worth the cold. Sometimes, though, it is just worth putting your phone down and taking in the majesty of it all. as we hurtle through the universe on our one tiny ball of rock.
Brilliant. That was Sarah Cruddas. How amazing were those pictures?
Incredible pictures, and it's amazing to see what our smartphones can do that most of us will never actually use them for.
Right.
And over the course of the past year, some people have got into new hobbies, others may have been busy sorting things out around the house, like maybe going through some old photos. And in fact, I have something here that could be very handy for that. This is a gadget for digitising old negatives, so you can either save them in your phone or you can print them.
Right. Okay, how's it work?
It's simple to use, but it is a bit fiddly. You've got to download the Photoscanner app first, and then turn the light on, slip your negative in here, line up your phone camera with the hole, and then you're ready to go.
I see. So it's reversing the colours in the image. It's showing you the positive of the negative in a live view, yeah?
That's right, then you've just got to snap it.
That is a striking photo, by the way. That's Darth Maul, if anyone's asking.
It is, and it's bright, so it seemed a good one to test as the colours really pop. And after a bit of jiggling the device about, it works. It's not perfect, but it is largely made out of cardboard, and it does only cost 35 quid.
Is that you under the makeup, by the way?
No, all of my old pictures are way too embarrassing.
I think it's you under the makeup.
Hello and welcome to the Week in Tech. It was the week Google announced it has 3 billion active Android devices. It also previewed a skin condition diagnosis app and a 3D video chat platform, all at its online I/O event. A probe investigating if Amazon has exploited its market dominance was launched by Germany's antitrust watchdog. And crypto scammers posing as Tesla's Elon Musk made more than $2 million, that's £1.4 million, in just 6 months, the US Federal Trade Commission has said. Ada, the robot artist named after computer programmer Ada Lovelace, opened its first major exhibition. The robot, which uses AI to create self-portraits and speak, is being showcased at London's Design Museum. An electric aircraft for suburban to city commuters was unveiled by Germany's Volocopter. The 4-seater can take off and land vertically and has a range of 62 miles, say its makers. However, it's a smaller 2-seater model the company aims to launch first by 2023. And finally, a robot can now scale stairs without computer vision to guide it. Feats like this usually require AI sight, but this 2-legged bot has been trained in a virtual simulator to operate blind, meaning it could be used in dim light or fog. It's definitely going up in the world.
Now, after months of shutdown, cinemas here in the UK are finally reopening. And while they wait for all of those big blockbusters to be released, they're looking at ways of making money in the meantime. So how about this? How about bringing video games to the biggest screens in town? Mark Chislak's been finding out more.
The popcorn's been purchased, the house lights dim, but instead of preparing for the latest blockbuster trailers, I'll be grabbing a game controller and firing up a console on one of the biggest screens here at the Cineworld in London's Leicester Square.
There's big, and then there's that. This screen is 24 metres across, which dwarfs even the largest television. At the moment though, its grand scale is simply highlighting that I need to spend a little bit more time practicing at Mario Kart.
After months of cinema closures, blockbuster cinematic releases have been on hold for the last year or so. The movie business has taken a massive financial hit.
In 2020, the global box office was 71% behind where it was in 2019. The box office in the UK last year took around 322 million. which is a good 76% behind where it was in 2019. So it really was a sizable hit last year.
Finding new ways to make cash has seen cinema chains turn to the world's biggest entertainment medium, video games, and renting their screens out to gamers. We haven't been able to see a superhero movie in an auditorium like this for the last year or so, so it's really cool to be able to play a superhero on a screen like this one. And as Miles Morales' Spider-Man swings across Manhattan's skyline, the action is so epic that it provokes a sense of awe and vertigo in equal measure.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important that we, as a sector, as an industry and as a business, we innovate right now. We need to pivot like most businesses. In terms of gaming, it's a new offer that we've seen quite a lot of demand for, to be honest. And obviously we have the biggest screens, the best sound, Dolby Atmos, etc. So yeah, it's definitely become something of interest to customers. I think particularly, now that they want to leave their houses for new experiences, everybody's been stuck indoors. They want to get out and about and experience things, in the real world with their families and friends.
It costs £119 to hire a screen like this one for up to 20 people for 2 hours. Gamers can bring along their own consoles, or for an additional cost, they can choose to play from a catalogue of titles on a range of machines, from vintage consoles like the original PlayStation to newer consoles like Nintendo Switch and the PS5.
I think it's really interesting. I think it should hopefully have a positive effect in the sense that they're going to be bringing more revenue into the cinemas. If you look at multiplexes, they have 10 or 20 screens with up to 6 shows a day on those screens. So your average cinema is showing, somewhere between 60 and 120 screenings a day. And unsurprisingly, quite a few of those are often empty. All the cinemas are doing is actually seeing that they have that empty space and finding other ways to utilise it to make themselves money.
While the money generated from initiatives like this one is unlikely to make up for a year's worth of lost revenue, it demonstrates that while cinemas wait for delayed blockbusters like the latest Bond movie, No Time to Die, to bolster the box office takings,
you can imagine why I've come back to play.
plans like this one might just be what picture palaces need to keep in business.
That's a finish!
That was Mark. Now, over the years I've tested a fair few sleep gadgets.
Yeah, you have. In fact, I remember the very first report you did for us all those years ago was done entirely from bed, wasn't it?
It was. Well, things have moved on in more ways than one. And those devices used to be a lot about tracking how much sleep you got, whereas now they also focus on bettering it, especially for those with sleep disorders. And one of those people is comedian Dom Jolly, so he's been putting a few of the latest to the test.
Moon in the night sky, how brightly she shines. Now all the world is asleep.
Hello, I'm Dom Jolly and I'm a comedian and travel writer, and I'm in my bedroom. Why am I letting people film in my bedroom? Well, I've got sleep apnea. And it was a bit of a shock because I'd never had anything wrong with me, and suddenly it was like sleep apnea, I couldn't even spell it. So I looked it up. It's incredibly common, actually. It essentially means that you stop breathing on a lot of occasions through the night while you're asleep. And the main way you can tell you get it is snoring. And this is how I got diagnosed. My wife used to constantly tell me I snored. I was stopping breathing, I think, up to 90 times a night for up to a minute at a time. And it's insane. I mean, I thought I slept quite well, but it appears that I haven't actually got any sleep for the last 20 years. And if it's not diagnosed, if it's not treated, it can lead to terrible strokes and very bad health. And since then, I've had to wear, well, it's normally linked into a pipe, but I have to wear this every night. Hello, ladies. Hello. I mean, obviously it's a very sexy look, but it's just a bit of a drag. It really is. So I'd be very interested to see if there's anything else on the market that could deal with my sleep apnea. Well, this is actually a smaller version of the thing that I have by my bed, but basically I still have to travel around with this machinery, piping, What I'd really like is something else, like something to either get rid of sleep apnea or at least to sort of help me control it without having all this equipment. And we got 3 things here that I've been sent to have a look at, and they're not ideal, I'm going to be honest with you. The first one, this is a thing where you, everything seems to involve making you look slightly ridiculous in the sleep apnea world. I don't know if it's just, that's their thing, but whatever. This one, you stick just above your chin and basically turn it on, and then you go to sleep. And when you wake up in the morning, it links up to an app and it tells you, well, essentially what sort of sleeper you are, how good a sleep you had. It shows where you are getting good sleep, where you're not. It also sort of tells you whether you're a night, late night, early person. It's basically asking you to regulate your sleep, and it's teaching you more about your sleep. So it's analysis. To be honest, if you live with someone, as I do, my wife analyzes my sleep pretty regularly. You're snoring, shut up, stop moving around. She gives a detailed, I wake up in the morning and she's about to punch me in the face for something I have no recollection of doing. The second one, attach these pads to your chest. Again, you go to sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you send off your results to somewhere in America, and they send you back a detailed breakdown of your sleep patterns and also a shopping list of things they think that you should buy. It sounds a little bit like a sleep apnea Amazon, which is kind of urging you to buy stuff that I'm not sure you need. And actually that is a worry, because it's not cheap, sleep apnea. And my machine by my bed is from the NHS, but this travel one I had to buy, that was 900 quid. So if there was something cheaper that worked, I'd absolutely love it, but it's got to work. This one I think is probably the most interesting, because it actually does try and do something else. And what it's basically trying to do is retrain my brain, which I can tell you straight away is a tricky thing to do, because I'm very stubborn. But this is called neurofeedback. I'll put it on because obviously you have to look ridiculous when talking about sleep apnea. And you put this on your head, there are electrodes. It sounds terrifying, and it sort of feels it a little bit. That are sticking into bits of your head. And again, they send messages around your brain, and the idea is that over a series of sessions, you try and retrain your brain and the way you sleep. Did it work for me? I have to say I did 10 sessions, nothing. But that doesn't mean it's not good. I'm sure it might work. My daughter does neuroscience at university and tells me this is actually a thing, but she thinks I might be a bit too stubborn. But I quite like this because at least it's trying to do something different. The truth is that if you really want to get rid of your sleep apnea, I think you've got to start eating a bit healthier, maybe drink a little less, quite a lot of exercise, lose some weight. I know that, but I want the magic thing. But until then, I'm just going to take my traveling contraption around, and I have to live with that until someone comes up with something that really works.
Now all the world's asleep.
That was Dom Jolly. I tell you, lack of sleep, insomnia, sleep disorders, they're a complete nightmare, aren't they?
I'm so lucky I don't suffer from insomnia, but whenever I've tested sleep gadgets, I end up struggling to sleep because I'm focusing on them, which obviously completely defeats the purpose.
Yeah, too right, I see what you mean. Well, I'm afraid though, that is it from us for this week.
As ever, you can keep up with us on social media. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at BBC Click.
Thanks for watching, sleep well, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.